Welcome to Own the Chaos. The stock market is crazy and chaotic.
And crash. You son
Oh, God. Hold on. Pause.
Brad and Fat Man Zoom are here to help you own it.
They were targeting Wall Street when they should have been targeting Capitol Hill. They should have been targeting DC. This is the same thing, and this is what people keep missing.
Taking it to the suits, being relatable and hilarious.
You bought GameStop at 400, didn't you?
To the moon, baby, to the moon.
Get ready to own the chaos in 3, 2, 1.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Own the Chaos. My name is Brad. That is Fat Man Zoom. The stock market is crazy and chaotic, and we've made it our mission to help you guys own it. We got a good one for you today, but before we do, Fat Man Zoom, hit him off with starting five.
Starting five are Eric Brand, Sean Ethier, Housekeeping, Fernando Pereira, and Lindsay Heiss. Bongia. You guys are our starting five. Welcome to Own the Chaos. Guys, this is the final day of the week that we are live. Well, unless you consider Sunday, but business week. We're live every Monday through Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, reporting the good news and the bad news of what's going on in the market, reacting to earnings and such, general overall stock market. So we're going to talk about that stuff today, talk about how we, what we expect moving forward. And we got a couple earnings that we're going to be checking out. So guys, welcome. Make sure you hit that thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe and notification bell. You know all the good stuff, guys.
I just got to say, I don't think it's a coincidence that as soon as we went live, the market started turning back up.
Oh, really?
The Nasdaq was down as much as 3% before I hit that live button, and now it's only down around 2.3%.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. What happened today, man? I think, yesterday, like we thought it was going to start red.
Yeah.
And then Fed got done with his meeting. Jay Powell sort of released the minutes, and then it was kind of what we expected. Market just went off.
Yeah.
Market looked good this morning, and then out of nowhere, specifically the Nasdaq just tanked along with the tech went with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of speculation as to what's going on. The only thing that I can think of that logically makes sense is that there's a lot of high multiple stuff that's just kind of being abandoned. Because if we look at the Dow's green.
Yeah.
So to me, that tells me that people are still there. We're still seeing this rotation into value quality stocks, and that seems to be the theme. Johnson & Johnson's green, Pfizer, Eli Lilly, all those. Berkshire Hathaway is green, Verizon, another value stock, and the financials, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, all those are green. So to me, I still think that we're seeing this rotation from high multiple tech type stocks, and that seems to be kind of like the theme. Big tech ended up taking a back seat today. We saw Apple kind of retreat, Amazon did as well. So it seems as if that's the theme, and that's the best thing I can come up with. It's the best theory I can come up with right now, because I really can't pinpoint as to what's going on.
Yeah, well, so if you're saying it's high multiple, Apple isn't high multiple though, right?
No, and that's why I'm like,
Okay.
I can't really pinpoint exactly what's happening, other than the fact that seems to be what the theme is based off of what's hot right now today and what's actually in the green.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an interesting day, and I mean, it's wild. I'll say it was surprising to me. I mean, it's obviously a red day isn't a big deal to me, but like, it's just surprising how it played out and just the sharp move kind of out of nowhere.
Because we were super green this morning.
We were green. And I mean, it happened fairly close to open. I mean, but we opened up, things look good. A little bit of profit taking. You think we're back on our way up, and then all of a sudden it just turned. That to me was like really interesting and gave me pause, because there's I can't justify it in any way.
Yeah.
When you just look at sort of how it played out. So it was very surprising. Does it concern you moving forward?
No, I don't think so. Only because, and I actually closed my position in Airbnb yesterday with the expectation that I was going to get back in tomorrow. But I think I might hold off a little bit more just to see how this goes, because Airbnb got hammered. And that's actually one that I thought about continuing to hold on to. But, it plays into that it fits into that mold of high multiple stocks that aren't making money, aren't making positive earnings. And so I might have to sit that one out a little bit more, but I think that this is a temporary flush, in my opinion. I think at some point, like a lot of these stocks got hammered. The ARC conglomerate has been getting crushed.
Yeah.
Kathy Wood bought more stocks today. She bought what's the UFC stock? Shit. Can't remember the name.
Oh, I don't remember the name of it. I'll get it.
Somebody will let us know. She bought that today. And so, I mean, Robinhood isn't a surprise to see it down here, but that's
Endeavor Group Holdings.
Endeavor. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So, she bought some of that. That was green. I don't know what that's doing right now, but, a lot of her stocks are down 30, 40, 50%. I mean, at some point, the bottom's going to be coming in. There might be a little bit more pain, I think, unfortunately, for those type stocks, but we've been kind of talking about this theme over the last couple of weeks and really last couple of months, really leading into the fourth quarter, that, quality is really kind of going to be where it's at as we start to see the Fed tightening up and all that good stuff. And I don't know, man. It does seem like a weird day. I wish I had like a more clear explanation as to what's going on. Don brought up a really good point too, from the Don Fran show. He said some dividend stocks are up 3 deviations this week and is going nuts. And I think that just kind of plays into my theory too, of just people moving into value. If you think inflation's going up, the best hedge against that inflation, stocks, and in particular dividend stocks too.
Yeah. Don, throw in some examples of that. I mean, I know AT&T is probably one of those, but they had news. So
yeah, they were up today.
I wasn't aware of other ones. And obviously I would imagine Verizon's up from a sympathy perspective, potentially. I haven't been keeping too close of an eye on it, but a couple of comments I want to look at it and then ask you if you did anything. Don, there wasn't any news today, as far as I know. D Nice, guys, no one knows what to expect moving forward. It's just a guess at this point. And everything anybody does, and us included, is an educated guess. I mean, sometimes you can tie news to what's going on, and moving forward, you can have a reasonable expectation on what to expect. Like we talked about going into the Fed meeting, we should see some choppiness. It played out almost exactly like you said it would play out. So from that perspective, nothing's guaranteed, but there are instances where you can make an educated guess based on past information.
Yeah.
And one of those things is the Santa Claus rally. And so, if for people that don't know, why don't you give people an expectation on a Santa Claus rally? And do you still anticipate there being a Santa Claus rally?
Yes. Yeah. So there's a big misconception, and make sure you guys tune in. I'm going to be putting out a video tonight about the Santa Claus rally and just what it is and when you should expect it, but to kind of give you the gist. It actually doesn't take place until after Christmas. It doesn't happen until historically between December, the day after, trading day after Christmas, leading into the first couple of days of the new year. So that's usually the span in which we see it. Average rate of return for that week on the S&P 500, somewhere around 1.5%. So that's usually a pretty decent rally. Now, just because it's a Santa Claus rally and everybody's expecting it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen. It's happened about 2/3 of the time. So this could be a third of the, one of those times where it doesn't happen. We saw that not happen in 2018. That was a really tough end of the year. So I don't know if that takes place this time around. We're still in a period where, there's tons of liquidity. There's a lot of optimism surrounding around the economy. So I still am of the belief that we should see some sort of year-end rally. And, we're experiencing a little bit of volatility now, but I still think that sticks.
Yeah. Random comment I want to throw out there. Sanjeev, first time here. Really liked your show, or really like your show. Welcome. First time here.
Yeah.
Not for nothing. I don't know how you like our show if you wrote that before the show started, but I appreciate the sentiment. But I'm just kidding, man. So did you do anything today? I think that's really the most important question.
Yeah. No, I didn't do anything. I just sat on my hands and just kind of waiting to see things play out until I could make some sense of some things. I mean, I was just looking at some of the retail stuff, like Dick's Sporting Goods just makes no sense to me. Macy's, the way that it's, trading down here, it makes no sense. A lot of the retail stores are just getting hammered, and I don't get it. I really don't. So until things start making sense, that's when I'll make moves. But you had a really great call on one of our favorite banks, and that's Goldman Sachs. That's up 2.25% today, making its way towards the $400 resistance. which, by the way, guys, if you want to go check that out, it's at ownthechaos.com. We put out a list of stocks that we think might make the moves in that particular day, maybe even in the short term as well. Goldman Sachs was on the list today, and it's still crushing it. In a sea of red, that is one of the few green ones that actually made the move today. So if you guys want to check that out and get it for free, go to ownthechaos.com and help support the channel. But yeah, man, I didn't make any changes today. What about you?
I added it to Apple.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
That was pretty much it.
Did you add it at its lows or?
No, it wasn't at its lows. Actually, I don't even know, what is it at now? 173.
Yeah.
I probably got it. So I bought options on it. I added to options. Probably should have been prepared for that question.
It's all right.
I got it actually around where it is right now.
So it's sitting at 173.
So just under 173 is when I got it.
So that's not bad. That's not bad. I mean, you got the 170.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's not terrible. I think that's probably a good ad. I mean,
you're talking about Leap, so
yeah, for sure.
Strike. So I had their strike is 150, so it's deep in the money.
Yeah.
Options. So
yes, I think you're good there.
yeah, I mean, overall, actually, I've had those for a while, so they've been doing really well for me.
Yeah.
And I just felt like, obviously, like I'm gonna take profit if it breaks trend and if it really, tanks, for lack of a better phrase. But my hope is that it sort of bounces like it does, but it keeps running back up. Hopefully it makes up that ground. But, one of the bold predictions I want to ask, depending on where we're at in January, is what comes first. Well, this isn't a bold prediction. I'll just ask you right now. What comes first, 200 or 150?
For Apple?
Yeah.
200.
So I think that's an easy guess.
Yeah.
That's what I'm betting on. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, and we're not alone in that. I mean, there's a lot of analysts with Goldman and JP Morgan that think it's 200 plus for Apple. So yeah, we'll see.
Don Fran, we do confessions on Monday, but he is still giving his confession, which is I'm selling half of my Apple. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can get down with that. Look, there is potential given the run that it had for it to come down to 157. So I mean, I don't blame you. At least you still got skin in the game. I don't know if I'd be willing to just give up half of my Apple. I guess it depends on what your plans are for it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're up a ton.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair. It's fair. Play with some house money.
Yeah. So another tech company that had a horrible day was Adobe.
Yes. They had earnings and missed.
Yeah, they had earnings and weak guidance, missed expectations based on analysts, and it just was not good.
Yeah, and we talked about this too, about the potential for this to come down if they missed earnings. And one of the big reasons why I think there's such a drastic move down was because of the multiple this had. If I remember correctly, this had a pretty high multiple. Let's look at the PE right now. Even with it down 10% right now, it still has a forward PE of 45.5. So still pretty up there. But I think we're getting close to a point to where this may be worth, taking a risk on. Just given the fact that it's sitting here around the 200-day moving average, 566.92 is where we're sitting at right now. The 200-day moving average is at 578. So it is a little bit risky, especially if it closes below that number. So if it does and the downward momentum continues, I think there's a possibility for this to come down to 525. We can mark that area. But I think that's certainly a possibility. Considering that it had already spiked below this low. Actually, no, it didn't. It almost got there, but 552 might be an area that I'd certainly keep an eye on then too. If it doesn't hold 552, then maybe this 525 area becomes more of a reality.
Yeah. So CNBC did an article about this and said that this was their worst day, their second worst day since 2010.
Wow.
And I think it was like 3 of their worst days this year have come in December. And so in my mind, like, how much weight do you put in statistical stuff. Like when you look at stocks and you see like a stock like Adobe is going to be around. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah.
And actually, like, even though guidance is a little bit weak, we've talked about like Adobe still has a lot of growth potential.
Yes.
And they're in a good space for where business is going moving forward. When you look at stocks and you're like, well, statistically, like this is the second worst day in really over a decade. Do you put any weight to that? Like, how much worse can it get? Or are you like, okay, I'm like afraid?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you start asking yourself, how much worse can it get? I have to dig a little bit deeper into the earnings just to see how poorly they were this quarter. But my expectations are a lot of these companies, and Amazon's in that same boat. They're comparing it to 2020, and I think that when we start getting comps where we see tech comparing themselves to 2021, may start to give us a little bit more clearer picture, and the glasses can start to get a little rosier. So this might be in the doghouse for a period, but I think at some point, and I think that 10% is a bit much too.
Yeah.
I think that there's definitely good risk reward here.
Yeah.
Especially if it comes and tests that 551 and holds that. I think that's very good risk reward.
Yeah. And before I start looking at the comments, so I clarify, obviously I know it can get worse.
Yeah.
I'm just more saying in theory, like that comment.
It's hard. It's hard to see how much worse this gets.
Yeah. I mean, it's you're talking about odds and risk reward.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if I'm going to take a flyer, see confirmation, like,
yep.
Okay. There's a lot of things that got ahead of themselves. So like or even an overreaction, like if you have an overreaction, I'd rather bet on a company like Adobe than a company like Peloton.
Yes.
Like an established company that's been around.
Yeah.
Speaking of, the one crazy thing, you got companies like Roku, you got companies like Peloton, you got companies that are just like, Roku's up 7%. Peloton, what was Peloton up? Peloton's up 3%. What, like, that is like even more baffling.
Peloton, let me tell you about Roku. Roku is Motley Fool special today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They came out and blasted an email with the title "Buy Roku."
Oh, okay.
Everybody bought Roku.
All right. That makes sense.
So, I mean, look, it's come down, but yeah, that's one big reason why it's up so much today.
Peloton?
Peloton, I don't know. I don't get Peloton. I mean, we are getting close to where Peloton was pre-pandemic. And like I was looking at something like Stitch Fix, which is almost at its IPO price, which is wild to me.
That is wild.
And so I mean, I'm looking at Peloton right now. We can take a look at this together. I don't understand. Maybe it's just because it's moved down so much. I don't know. There's a bunch of drama going on with them and Sex in the City and the ads and all that. Ryan Reynolds getting involved. So maybe that's why there's some movement here, but I wouldn't put too much into that either.
Speaking of IPO pricing or IPOs in general, I failed to mention specifically after hours. Make sure you guys stick around after 4 p.m. We have two real earnings we're checking out: FedEx and Rivian.
Yeah,
which I wasn't aware that Rivian was reporting earnings. So we'll definitely check out Rivian. I think that's probably the one that is most interesting to see how that performs. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely go to Twitter, report the numbers when they come, and Brad will put up the charts to watch the reaction. So making sure you guys stick around definitely after the bell, because I expect at least Rivian to have some crazy volatility.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Hey, you ready to get into some controversy?
Yeah.
So yesterday, Nancy Pelosi, did you hear about this news?
Maybe.
She was asked.
Oh, it was about, go ahead.
About, should lawmakers be publicly trade, or should they be trading securities, individual stocks?
Yeah.
And she basically dismissed all of that.
Yeah.
And was like, no. And her response essentially was that this is a free market. We should be allowed to trade whatever we want, blah, 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 blah. Now, obviously, the conflict of interest here is because lawmakers know a lot more than maybe we do as, normal, regular, everyday people. So people have have really kind of started to gain. This has really started to gain traction, not just with Nancy Pelosi, but other people as well. But she's kind of been in the limelight as far as this is concerned. A huge topic of discussion. And I know that you are a big speaker against cronyism, and this definitely falls into that category. For me personally, I think that lawmakers should not be able to trade individual stocks. And I want to be clear about that. Individual stocks is the key here, because I think that they should be allowed to trade mutual funds. I think that's fine. If you just want to invest in mutual funds, that's fine. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. But individual stocks, I think there's a clear conflict of interest, especially when it comes to lobbying and all that good stuff. Definitely just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because we haven't visited the cronyism topic in a while.
Yeah. Yes. And it's one that people people shine enough light on it. When you guys hear the intro, there's a soundbite where I went off about cronyism, because I think people when they get emotional, especially regarding these type of things, they tend to aim at the wrong thing. And so, I say they were focused on Wall Street when they should be focused on Capitol Hill. That was a rant I went on regarding cronyism. And I have no issue with people taking advantage of the rules that are in their favor. My issue is, I have no issue with that. And so people get all pissed off for others like her or anybody else, and it's typically politicians that are taking advantage of the system. It's no different than you finding tax breaks that you're taking advantage of. If you got an issue with it, then you need to focus on the policy, not on the person taking advantage of this. In my opinion, I got no issues with you doing that.
Yeah.
And so this is another example. It's like she's using something to her advantage now. Should she, her comment oh, I'm okay with it. Okay, I get it. But the reality is this is in plain sight. This happens all the time.
Yeah.
It's we know that politicians are some of the most crooked people. And so should this surprise you? I agree. So if you're just asking me, what should it be? And when you're in a seat in a political position that especially can impact these type of decisions in the markets in general, you shouldn't be able to hold specific positions in stocks.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And I agree, you could hold investments, but it needs to be in the things you mentioned, mutual funds, ETFs, whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody should just be able to hold SPY. That's it. Or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a topic of discussion that the Fed was having. I mean, remember, this was not that long ago. The Fed was talking about certain stocks, individual stocks that they were in, members of the Federal Reserve, and even Congress people were shouting at them for this. Elizabeth Warrens of the world were like, you shouldn't be investing in individual stocks. What are you doing? And so it's like, well, you're doing the same thing and you're in the same space, so why shouldn't you be allowed to do it and the Fed isn't? So yeah, I mean, I think for me, and you just look at some of the timing of some of this stuff, and I don't know if you saw this, but there was a popular Twitter profile that was Nancy Pelosi's portfolio tracker, reported a lot of her her trades or whatever, or that her advisor had made for him. That's gone, suspended, gone, which I thought was also interesting. So it just kind of played into a lot of just looks really fishy, really fishy, and it's not a good look. And so yeah, I would definitely am glad to hear some of your thoughts on that.
Well, I think, and I mean, this is just off the top, you're asking me this, but the things that come to mind are either cut them, when you move into a political position, maybe you can't trade any, whatever you have, you can keep, but you can't do anything with it.
Yeah.
You can't sell it. You can't buy it. So anything you do, you got to do before you go into office day one.
Yeah.
That would be one thing. It's if you came in with that, fine, whatever. But you decide if you want to ride it out for a couple of years, which most people you would think are okay, I'll hold on to it 4 years. It should be better.
Yeah.
But more likely, I feel maybe you give them some sort of tax break. You have to sell out of all your positions and transition it. But it's almost when you sell real estate and you can avoid capital gains if you reinvest in real estate.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something like that. If you sell out of all your positions, you can reinvest into a mutual fund, you'll avoid capital gains. if the situation is you're in a political position, right? Like, so you don't get screwed in a way,
Right.
Because a lot of these people do have a ton of money. So,
yeah.
So like, I'm sure there's a workaround in that sense, but either way, this is another example of like, just another angle that politicians take advantage of, and the system is unfortunately kind of skewed in their favor.
Well, I mean, they're the ones making the policy.
Yeah,
Of course, they
public servants are like, I don't know. It's crazy. So, anyways, it all usually boils down to cronyism, and look it up if you don't know what it is. Peter Schiff is a big proponent of it, and more brought it to the limelight. Whatever you think about Peter Schiff, at the end of the day, if you hear him talk about it, it's really hard not to be compelled by the argument he makes regarding cronyism.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for a fiduciary, and I was limited to the amount of trades that I could make in a certain period of time. It's like, it only makes sense if a lawmaker, should follow the same rules.
Yeah.
Anyways, good stuff. Definitely had some chatter on that. I'm sure there's plenty in the chat. Whenever we talk about anybody in Congress, it usually stirs up a lot of conversation, but I felt like it had to be talked about. It's in our space. We needed to address it, at least to a certain extent.
So as we move towards close, let's talk a little bit about the earnings that are coming up. I mean, let's just talk about Rivian and make sure we get that in.
Yeah.
So this is a snapshot for Rivian. Rivian has what, $100 billion market cap. Is that correct? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, it's 93 billion now, but yeah, close enough.
So it's hit 100 billion. So 93 billion, has basically an insane market cap for a company that they haven't technically delivered anything yet, have they?
Yes, they've delivered about 15 trucks.
Okay. 15?
Yeah, 15.
But they are ramping up quickly, and I think their first year or next year they're expecting 150K. Don't mark my words, but I feel like that number has been on the back of my mind. So they are expecting to have good numbers, but it's the market cap is really insane.
Yeah.
And so
it's still more than Ford. It's still more than GM
by a long shot.
Yes.
Especially comparatively to the numbers that Ford's talking about doing for their EVs. So is there any chance this thing goes off to the upside?
I don't think so, man. I mean, I don't know what they would report in this, in this quarterly filing that would get people excited, unless they start talking about, they have things are advancing faster than they thought they would, especially when it comes to building new factories or producing more trucks. Obviously, we got news from Motor Trend that the RT1 was truck of the year. So there's definitely some positives there, but man, I still just don't understand the valuation here. And I don't know if there's anything in this report that would get people excited and want to buy more of this way up here. I think it should be a $40 stock, I think at best. And I know that sounds crazy because we're about 70% away from that. But if we just look at it where it should be based off of what their sales are and growth and all that, it should be a $40 stock.
So one thing is, it's come down a lot since their IPO.
Well, since their highs, yeah. I think it's right around their IPO price. Somewhere around there.
Yeah. So
it's so funny. Look at this daily chart. Looks like a straight up pump and dump.
Yeah. So it's given back a lot, but I mean, it can definitely make a run. This is the one thing I worry about.
Yeah.
Is that number one, it shouldn't make a run. Number two, it could make a run. Only because
it can go up or down.
Only because, so I'm saying it could make a run up or it can make a run down. This is a bold prediction, people. You're only going to get this type of information here. No. Let me clarify what I'm saying. There's no way this should go up.
Yes.
But just the state of like where everything is, the hype around EVs, the hype around Rivian in general, and the fact that we've talked about this, EVs don't actually have to do anything yet.
Yeah.
Like it's their first earnings. Nobody's expecting numbers, right?
Right.
And so as a CEO, you could just be good at painting a really good vision and I feel like this actually could run up just on like some BS vision talk. Like,
Oh
man,
yeah.
we can like produce double more than we thought, or like we plan on expanding. Like you can just talk about the future and it could run. So I think that wouldn't be a great reason, but just because EVs are like everybody's looking a few years out, and companies only have to be building infrastructure now and really be setting up for the future. They don't actually have to deliver yet. 2-3 years from now, you're not going to be able to say, hey, we're going to be able to do this. It's going to get to a point where you've got to show what you've been doing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So for them, I feel like that could possibly happen. Now, if I was a betting person, I wouldn't be in it regardless. Now, let me say, if it goes down, does Tesla go up? If they have a bad earnings, does Tesla go up, or is it just not do anything?
I don't think it's really impacted. I mean, I think the only way that Tesla gets impacted is if they make some sort of announcement that they have a development in which would impact the industry, right?
Yeah.
And we saw that from Ford today. Did you see the Ford news as far as the charging stations were concerned? I think personally that's what really moved Tesla to the downside, and we got Tesla down to the low 900s today. We talked about this earlier in the week about 900 being a reality, and we're getting close. So I think close the day at 926, but I think on top of the overall market movement, I think that's certainly, we saw once that news got tweeted out by Jim Farley, Tesla immediately moved down.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say that it wasn't because of that. Obviously, market conditions certainly helped Tesla move down even lower, but I think that the reaction was certainly from Ford.
Yeah, I mean, and I think when we mentioned that, there was conversation about scooping up at 900. I'm worried it's going to go down to 840. I'm not 850, like right around that range. We're like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. We know Tesla could have some serious volatility.
Oh yeah.
Still love the company, still going to crush it. Real quick side note, and then we'll get into looking at the earnings and then talk about FedEx. 2030 prediction that Elon made, the Tesla would have 30 million cars. I just want to say they would produce or deliver 30 million cars
By
in 2030. Yeah.
Like total 30 million cars?
No. Per year,
That's insane.
30 million.
Nobody,
Not deliver, it's produce. I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
Produce.
That seems ridiculous. That seems like some bullshit. Elon, like, you know how he goes crazy sometimes with his projections.
Yeah.
And he's done that in the past. So it's not like I'm pulling this out of thin air.
I'm just telling you what he said.
Robo-taxis should have been out by now.
2030.
2019, he said that we were going to see robo-taxis now. Obviously, pandemic happened. All right, I'll give him that. But Cybertruck's still not out. Semis still aren't out. Like, let's get those on the road first.
So FedEx also reports earnings. Earnings per share estimate $4.29. Revenue $22.42 billion. Last quarter was not great. They missed on earnings per share, barely beat on revenue. What are you expecting from FedEx?
Can I cheat?
Yeah, you already got them.
No, but the stock's up 3% after hours right now. The stock market
you could, because it could come back.
That's true. I think that they'll surprise us a little bit. I mean, the stock's gotten beaten down. It's really gotten shit on. You know, I'm going to be in Daniel Camarina's camp. He did actually mention that they were seeing a little bit slower movement, but I think we could see something positive out of them. Looks like it is.
I don't have well, I think I do have revenue. So a couple good things. Earnings per share came in at 483, so they certainly beat. They announced the $5 billion share buyback.
Oh, there we go. That's why it's moving up.
All good stuff. 23.5 billion in revenue, so revenue beat as well. Solid numbers.
The very solid numbers. The stock now is reacting. Investors are reacting to the stock, I should say. It's now up 5.5% after hours. Really strong move out of FedEx. Where's Daniel Camarina when you need him? This is his day. And it's still climbing. We're up almost 6% here after hours. What a move on FedEx.
Woo! Oh yeah. Wow.
Let's take a look at the daily chart here and see where the potential could lie. I really, it's sitting at 252. If this opens tomorrow above 255, we could really start to see this maybe potentially test the 200-day moving average up to 270. We'll see, what their reactions are, but the consensus here on the street is that Amazon's really starting to move into their market. And so I think that would be something to certainly watch for. And, FedEx's outlook may become a little bit bleaker. We'll see. I mean, it's still early. We're only about 4 or 5 minutes into the close here on this report. So anything can happen, but right now it looks fantastic. Obviously, a buyback certainly gets a lot of people excited no matter what's going on with the company. That's a huge buyback too.
That is a huge buyback. And then there was a quick thing that said it was a $1.5 billion accelerated buyback as well. Looks like guidance, earnings per share, guidance fiscal year earnings per share. It looks like it was raised to 2150, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm reading this correctly.
Got 111 of you guys hanging in here and counting. It's going up. We're getting some people in. If we got 35 likes though, if you guys could get the thumbs up, we certainly would appreciate it. Appreciate all the support you guys give us every day. So hit that thumbs up if you are enjoying the show.
Tiger's Edge says Tesla back to 800, and I'm an ad.
Yeah, I mean it's paid off so far. FedEx is still rolling, bro. More new highs here after hours. It's now up 6.5%.
Damn, get rolling. There's that 255.
Yep.
Keep rolling.
If it closes, that's what I'm saying. If it opens above that tomorrow, I think the momentum should continue.
Kamal Rai asked, is Nvidia a buy? Nvidia had been on a run yesterday and then gave it all back today.
Yeah, I mean, everything gave everything back today. Seemed like anyway. It was down 7% today. Jesus. Let's look at the daily, see what we got. So it's been super volatile, obviously, and it's had a ridiculous run this year. One of the best performing, if not the best performing tech stock of the year. And, I think that I could see this potentially coming down to 277. I traded this through earnings and I was out. I took my money and ran. But I think there's certainly going to be more potential if this comes down to 277. I like that at the 50-day moving average. And it seems to kind of look like a relatively decent support around 273 too. So somewhere in that mid 270 range seems like a reasonable area to maybe watch for a bounce or an area to add. But yeah, I mean, there's certainly potential for it to come down lower, but I don't know if Nvidia actually does that. I think that this could certainly be a bottom for it down in this mid 270 range.
Yeah. Good question here. I actually really like this question. Changing frames. How does buybacks affect the stock price? Seems like it creates buying pressure. It's really supply and demand. I understand where you're coming from when you hear the words buyback, but think about it. You know what? You go ahead and give the answer, and then I'm actually going to give you, I think, a pretty good analogy.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, when companies announce a buyback, they're buying back shares of their own company, and they're putting them into a bucket called authorized shares. They're basically putting them in the treasury of the company, and when stocks get bought up, the price goes up, and that's essentially what ends up happening.
Yeah, so they're removing the stocks, so like the access to the stocks in a way. So think about it this way: you got a room, like all the market is buyers and sellers, right? So let's say you got a room with 100 people,
yeah,
right? If you're buying back shares, it's the equivalent of removing 20 of those people, just for sake of numbers. If you add 100, which would be dilution, if you add 100 and you go to 200 people, the likelihood of there's just obviously there's going to be more there, so you're increasing the supply. So whenever you increase the supply of something, the demand will naturally go down. So it's literally what's the opposite of dilution. Now, let me say, this doesn't guarantee that the stock's going to go up, but when there's less of something, there's scarcity. And when there's scarcity, there's a potential for people to pay more for it. So the idea is if we buy back a bunch of shares, we take that, 100 and we move it down to 50, there's just less available. And so people will be willing to pay more theoretically.
Yeah,
Doesn't always happen.
Essentially, the piece of your pie just got bigger.
Yeah. So yes, I think what you were thinking was like they're buying, so buying pressure, but the reality is they're taking it off the market, essentially.
Yep. Buying it back at a certain price. Daniel Camarena showed up. There he is. Oh, not Rudy Brown. There we go. Daniel Camarena. It says live from the FedEx truck. Daniel, they beat. FedEx beat earnings expectations. Daniel, let's go ahead and take a look at the chart, my man, just for you. The stock's continuing to roll. Last we checked, it was up 7% or 6.5%, and now it's up 8% after hours on a huge buyback that they announced. They also beat earnings pretty handily. So I know that Daniel had some concerns about it, just given him working there, but it looks like they actually came in pretty clutch here.
Yeah. I need to take another stab at that. I wasn't happy with the way I explained that analogy. Let me do it this way. This is for personal sake. You said you got to change trains, but I need to do this for personal sake. Okay. You got 100 people in the room, Brad.
Yes.
And you're going into this room and it's like a market, right? If you ever go into a market, a swap market, these are people selling things and you're buying things.
Yeah.
So if you go into the market, if there's 100 people selling the same product, comparatively, if you go into the same market a week later and there's only 20 people, who has the advantage? The people selling things. If I go in a room of 100 as opposed to 20, I'm likely going to be able to shop around because they're 100.
Yeah.
When you now minimize that to 20, now they have a little bit more of an advantage because what the price I'm looking for is less likely to be there.
Right.
And so this is the same idea when you're talking about buyers and sellers and shares. When you minimize it, there's less likely that ability for the stock to move down. I think that was a little bit better. I wasn't 100% happy with that, but I know in my mind there's an analogy there. Savvy says instead of a 12-slice pizza, you have an 8-slice pizza.
Yeah, that's essential.
Papa John still has all the ingredients to make more pizza.
Yeah.
Now I'm hungry for pizza.
Which is what Don had just said. He said the company that bought the dip and they'll sell it back later is dilution.
Yeah.
That will happen.
Don says retail buys shares on the shelf. This is the store taking back to this.
Yeah. Offerings
back to the back.
Offerings are essentially the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Sell it back to you.
Some people this sort of in line with this question, Jim Cramer's talked about this, and a lot of analysts on Wall Street actually don't like buybacks as a strategy. What are your thoughts on buybacks as a strategy? And I think it's because they think the capital could be better used somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. And that's essentially the thought behind that. But I think there's certain companies where it's just like, what do we do with the money? I mean, like Goldman Sachs, what are they going to do with it? I mean, sure, some innovation, whatever. But I don't know. I think it's very situational. If it's a company like Apple, yeah, they can use that money for better things. They're not known for their innovation, but they could certainly do something with that money. I mean, they're starting to do a little bit with the vehicle, with the EV that they're diving into or whatever. So sure. But I think that there's pros and cons. One way you can look at it is that they're rewarding their investors and thanking them for sticking with them. And I think that that's appropriate. But then there's also the other side of it that they could just be doing something better with it. And I think it just depends on the situation.
Yeah. So I think it depends on the interest environment, because obviously, like, we were in a zero interest environment. So I think it makes a lot of sense in a zero interest environment when you have cash on hand, especially when you have like Apple, Facebook has so much money they don't even know what to do with it. Even if they spent it, there's still so much money. Like, you're talking about, like, to them, what's like peanuts. Yeah. Right. To us, it's a lot of money. So I think depending on the environment. But I do agree with you as far as like, it kind of just shows goodwill towards the shareholders. Right. And okay, it's great to buy things, but there's also situations where you don't just buy stuff to buy stuff.
I was just about to say that.
And so like, yeah, it's great to buy things, but like you can be in a situation where some companies buy things and it doesn't work out for them, or they end up just buying stuff and now they're losing the direction that they once had. So I think it's more of a safe play, and I don't view it as negative. I either view it as a wash or a positive, depending on the environment.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, would you rather them buy the shares back or spend that money on something stupid? Because I think some companies would, the probability of them spending on something stupid is probably pretty high.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you want the cash yourself? Do you want your stock price to go up? Or do you want them to spend it on something stupid? And I think that's what it comes down to.
Savvy makes a good point, and this could be a FedEx situation. Depends on the timing of the shares. If shares are at an all-time low and they don't have any targets and R&D is fully funded, hell yeah. If you think you're undervalued, like Rocket has cash, like scoop them up. Be like, screw you guys. Because you could obviously do a special dividend or whatever, but like this is another strategy. And I agree, like, especially if you feel like your stock has been beaten down, your stock is at all-time lows, and you reward the people who are in there, who are sitting in there. I think that's a good strategy.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Victor Toledo said, what's up, Victor? I feel like we haven't seen you in a while. Grabbing more Ford while Elon keeps selling to pay his bills.
That's another reason why Tesla could continue to come down too. It's not done yet.
Yeah, that's true. We've mentioned that. What's up, Michael Hanna? We've mentioned that like Tesla is doing great. Don't get me wrong, but like they have to pretty much bat 1,000. Yes. Like when you look at sort of their situation, if they have any hiccups, if they have any issues, it could be challenging. Now, we haven't talked about it yet, but expect to hear more about it. India may be right around the corner, like right around the corner. Yeah. So again, timelines, constructions are very interesting things, but launching in India, delivering the first vehicle, and actually building the factory, India is going to be a huge market for them, and they'll have first mover advantage in there as well from an EV perspective. So there are catalysts for it. Obviously, we're waiting for the Cybertruck, semi. There's a lot, and there's a lot in the future on the pipeline, but still, Tesla's made a crazy. It's fundamentally, it's still hot.
India could be as big as China
from an EV sales perspective.
Yeah.
So the issue with India right now is, India wants. So the issue is their tax. So the tax is insane for companies who try to import vehicles, and so. What Elon wants is for India to drastically lower the tax to like 40% for EVs, which is still really good for India. And India is basically, if I understand this correctly, India is saying, okay, well, why don't you start building, and like once you start producing vehicles, we can discuss discounting. So like good faith.
Yeah.
And Tesla's like, well, no, we want to import vehicles to see what the demand is going to be like and to see viability. And then, like basically show us that you're willing to give us a discount and cut us a break. And then we'll move forward with our business. Because as it stands, India is basically asking them to put faith in them. And who wants to put faith in a government who's like, oh, yeah, just build this gigafactory and then we'll give you a break, when the reality is if you build it, you're stuck. So they have no incentive to give you a discount on imported vehicles.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to get worked out. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But that's really what's been the hang up for them. And I think all of this, like, that's a really bold prediction. However, that prediction coming to fruition is all going to be predicated on how willing India is to work with Tesla.
Yeah.
And how many concessions they're willing to make, which again, I think this is where governments are so short-sighted. You know what I mean? Like they take some off, get them in, build a good relationship. Tesla's going to dominate. You want the best company in your country.
Correct.
And they're just so caught up in the short-term money when it's like, if they could be producing in your country and they're the best company, I would bend over backwards for them.
Yeah. 100%.
That would be my opinion.
I agree. Avon Hunter says, Avon, you had me willing to submit something to you when you said that you disagree about India being as big as China, and then you'd mentioned that just because both of them have the same population doesn't mean the same. Fair point. But then you mentioned about them selling mopeds. Here it is. Tesla sells mopeds to India, and maybe that ends up being better. You lost me. I was almost there. I was almost ready to submit something to you until you mentioned mopeds.
Don Fran says, aren't they driving cars on two wheels in India?
Yes, they are. But it's not like they're driving them on two wheels in China too. I don't know.
Did you by the way, did you see the Tesla ATV for kids?
Yes.
That thing is badass.
It looks pretty awesome.
I want one of those.
The best looking power wheel I've ever seen.
Sold out in like a minute.
Not surprising.
It was crazy. It's so cool. I just love this company, and it's no surprise why there's so many people so loyal. Think about it. Like, they did the sexy shorts.
Yeah.
They did, which sold out. They did the tequila,
yeah.
sold out. They did the ATV. Like, they do cool shit. And this is where I'm going to call out
flamethrowers.
Yes. I'm going to call out people on here. You guys are so critical about Elon. And I've said this before. He's doing stuff you've been begging other CEOs to do and founders to do. And when he does it, you got issues with it. Like, I love it. I love it. I love that he did a freaking Cybertruck ATV. It's bad as hell. And it makes it it gives the company personality. And I hope Elon never leaves. And I hope he never dies.
He just lives forever.
Yeah. Or at least one day longer than I live.
I mean, he's got enough kids that you would think that at least one of them may end up inheriting some of the crazy big brain shit that he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of kids, let's talk about dogs. Do you know about this float guy?
The what?
The float guy Inu, the crypto. It's an altcoin that's named after Elon's dog.
Oh my God.
And it's basically like playing off of Shiba Inu, Doge, Shiba Inu, Floki.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to pronounce it. Floki. Floki Inu. If it was like an easy access for me, I would buy it. I'm not going to lie. It was up like 200%. It was up like 200%, but I'm going to be honest, man. I think this is going to just go bananas. Like, I mean, it goes up 200%. I think this has 1,000% move before the end of the year.
Is it just me, or does it seem like everything after Doge makes a pop, but it's never as big as the original Doge?
Well, what was after Doge other than Shiba that you're using as the example?
Really just Shiba, but there was a lot of other stuff like, Come Rocket and shit like that people would just buy up just for the fuck of it. And then it doesn't nearly have the same type of move as like the original shock value of said coin.
Yeah. I thought, I didn't really follow Shiba, but like, I thought didn't Shiba have a bigger move or no?
No.
Doge was, I know Doge was more sustained.
Doge was more sustained.
Maybe over the time that Shiba was going off, it was just outperforming.
Doge was far less than a penny, and then it went up to what, 50, 60 cents?
Well, and Come Rocket, I felt like was before Doge, no?
No.
It wasn't? It was after?
Yeah.
Come Rocket never did that. You just like the name of it.
Ass coin?
Shiba did it. I think there's no chance that this float guy does anything that is like actually something viable.
Safe moon.
But if you just want to play a move, I would definitely do that. I'm doing it. If I can get access to it easy.
Yeah, because it's not even available on Coinbase, right? You have to like.
No, it's not. But there's a petition.
Whatever.
There's a petition to get it on Coinbase.
Okay. There's all kinds of crazy avenues you have to get to some of this stuff. It's wild.
Yeah, I know. That's the other thing is barriers to entry. That's why I'm saying it's like really hard to get and it's still up 200%,
right?
Which is like six or seven zeros, 3. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you look at. Can you imagine what Shiba would have done if Robinhood finally let it trade on their platform?
Yeah.
That's what really kind of killed Shiba.
Yep.
And Robinhood.
And here's the other thing. You should be trying to rush to get onto these things only because, well, maybe not. But in my head, it's like, if people want to spend money, let them spend money.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be, I don't know what the process is of like adding, a coin as a broker. But I got to imagine it can't be like that crazy because we've seen them pop up.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, like, generate revenue, get people excited. Eventually, I've said this, everybody wants to talk about the tech bubble and they want to compare modern tech right now with that. I think that's a horrible analogy. I think just fundamentally situation's different.
Yes.
I would say that altcoins feel a lot more like the tech bubble than tech feels like the tech bubble.
I agree.
And so I think we're going to look back at this. I think 10, 20 years from now, we're going to be like, you remember that bubble when people were buying what was that? Like Shiba? You're going to still be talking about Cum Rocket.
I sure am.
Cum Rocket. 60-year-old talking about Cum Rocket.
Bought me some ass coin.
Did anyone buy Hood today? Michael Hanna.
No.
Not me.
And I'm not even thinking about it. What a terrible company.
Yeah, for sure.
It's bad. It's really bad. Michael Hanna, it's going down lower. I hate to break it to you.
Did Rivian move down? What's up, Rajiv?
Yeah, so I was looking at Rivian. It's been kind of a little bit all over the place. So I can pull it up. Right now, it's actually down 4%. So this is the biggest move that I've seen since after hours trading started. I didn't see if there was any news out on this just yet, but it's been
so
very
hungry.
choppy. I'm starving. I'm starving. But I was looking at this and it's kind of been all over the place. So it shot up to 112 at one point after hours, after closing the day at 108, and now it's sitting down around 3.25% to 104.80. So I don't know if
Oh, I got news.
okay, what you got?
Rivian's revenue came in at $0.
Hey.
Some would say they beat. Some would say they missed.
So them and Nikola have the same revenue, is what you're saying.
Not sure if they're just slightly ahead of Nikola. Not sure if this is true, but I'm just going to say it. Rivian Automotive says expect to be a few hundred vehicles short of 2021 production target of 1,200 vehicles. This is just silly.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's been qualified a couple times. Which, here's the thing, not a big deal. You're a few hundred vehicles short 1,200. Not a big thing on the surface, but the reality is if you can't deliver on 1,200 vehicles, that's like, how do you do that? I think that's a red flag.
How are you still operating, or how are you still trading at $100 billion?
Yeah. Like if you can't get the first number right, like that worries me for when you're trying to do 150,000 vehicles. So if 150,000 vehicles next year is the goal, I'm saying 50,000. They don't even get 100,000.
I'm not going to sit here and poo-poo on Rivian just yet because they do have an actual product,
which is really good.
It's just really good. Lots of media around this, verifying how good their trucks are and everything else. But how much of this do you think is probably not going to go well? Just because, like, the amount of institutions that are getting into this because they were so wrong about Tesla, and that's why it's trading up here.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think this is so much retail as it is the toots.
Yeah.
And I think
they want to say they found the next Tesla.
Yeah. And I feel as if this is going to shoot them in the foot big time.
What is the toots? The suits?
Institutions.
Oh.
Just shorten it up.
Okay. I agree. I think it's them trying to do that. And it's silly because Elon's talked about it. The hard thing isn't getting to your first vehicle. The hard thing is scaling operations. Like that, you see all the challenges that they face. It's like construction, right? When you build construction, like I'm from the bar industry, it's the joke that like no bar ever opens on time. And when you're in any construction, no timeline ever is met, ever.
Right.
And it's the same thing. Like to think that these EVs are going to go, like they're just going to go from 0 vehicles to 100,000, 500,000, 1 million without any issues is silly. is just really silly. Like Tesla took a long time to get there. The better chance Ford, they have the infrastructure in place. GM, they have the infrastructure in place. But especially companies like Rivian, they got a lot to figure out that they don't realize. And there's going to be a lot of issues as they try to build towards the million, whatever their vehicle goals are, 150,000 next year. It's not going to be smooth.
Yeah, well, and I think Rivian knows that, just to be clear.
Sure, yeah.
I think it's the institutions that are blowing this up, and making everybody seem like that they have it all under control, and they're just going to compete with Tesla right out the gate.
Yeah, exactly. And that I agree with that. And it's just like, it's just silly in my mind to do that. You're better off just buying Tesla. Obviously, we've talked about Ford. We're big fans of Ford. I would even say GM. Like, I've argued that I think from a long-term perspective, the next Tesla might not be here right now. But I think from a short-term perspective, if you're betting on EVs and you don't want to go the Tesla route, I do think a legacy company makes sense.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Jeff Chow says DF happened to the portfolio.
Jeff must have shown up an hour late.
I know, man.
Honestly, Jeff, we still don't really know. We still don't really have the answer. So for those of you who actually ended up showing up later, we still have really no clear explanation other than the fact that maybe investors were starting to warm up to the idea that, getting rid of some of the high valuation type stocks that weren't making any money, which we saw a lot of those continue to get crushed, and value stocks actually did well today. The Dow was up today, at least at the start of the show today. The Dow was up. I don't know where it closed at. It did close green today, up about 0.5%. No, just kidding. It just updated on me. It was actually down slightly. So, but still not nearly as red as the S&P or especially Nasdaq. So I think that's what my theory is, but still don't have a clear explanation as to what the hell went on today.
Yeah. But we will be here Sunday to talk about what's going to happen the next week. So make sure you guys tune in for Stock Watch Sunday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We will be back for you guys. For those of you who are newcomers, thank you. Appreciate you guys showing up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, the notification bell for any new videos or live streams you have going on. And for those of you guys who continue to be loyal, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming. We'll see you in the next show. Brad, what else you got?
Make sure you guys go to ownthechaos.com to get our watch list and all kinds of other goodies that we provide. We go live every morning as well. Fat Man Zoom and I, we live trade in there. You can see our portfolio, everything we got going on. If you want to go check it out and help support the channel, again, go to ownthechaos.com. Links down in the description. Freddie will be back next week. Hopefully, I saw a lot of people asking about Freddie too, but he'll be back. Just couldn't make it today. So other than that, we'll see you Sunday.
Bye.
Bye.
Freddie had hemorrhoids.